We live in a world where sensibilities of what is right and wrong are constantly being assaulted. I don't believe we have to equivocate or compromise on what we hold dear and believe to be effective leaders. I talk a lot about my 5 dimensions of leadership. Arguably, all 5 deal with personal values, but I want to focus on the first 2, knowing yourself, self-awareness, and speaking your truth, self-expression, as the 2 that constitute what most of us consider our personal values, what we stand for, what we believe in, and won't compromise on. Hi, I'm Jenny Clark, a conscious leadership expert who spent 2 decades in executive recruiting and talent management. Having worked with giants like Google, Spencer Stuart, I discovered that the secret to transformative leadership lies in the 5 dimensions of conscious leadership. And I'm here to help you unlock your full potential. Join me on this channel as we embark on an honest and vulnerable journey together and become the kind of leader that genuinely inspires organizational transformation. In my 20s and 30s, I was ambitious at work, but I'll admit I ran a little fast and loose in my personal life, having fun, sowing my oats, as they say. After I got married and had my son, I needed to slow down and set better boundaries for myself and others in my life. I realized that as I moved up in the corporate ladder, especially as a woman and a woman of color, I had to align who I was at my core with how I showed up at home and at work as a leader. Now, luckily, I had guides. I had great parents who modeled integrity, kindness, and love. They were both leaders in their respective professions. My dad, a leader in corrections, think prison warden, and a mother, physical therapist. They both passed away when I was in my mid to late 30s, but fortunately started working with a spiritual teacher, healer, who helped me mourn their passing while honoring their lives and legacies. I couldn't just define myself as my parents' daughter, or my husband's wife, or my son's mother, nor was I my title at XYZ company. I had to decide what I would stand for because it was clear that I would be faced with situations that called my personal values into question. One such situation was when a colleague stuck his head in a meeting room where I was meeting with a woman who happened to be Filipina and a man who happened to be Latino, and asked, "Is this a conspiracy?" I was livid, and I don't even remember what I said, but I know my face said it all. Several days later, I was at an offsite with our entire team, including the office manager. I told him what happened without divulging the person's name. More than anything, I wanted him to know that I took great offense to the comment and that it went against stated values of the firm. He wanted to know who it was, and I eventually told him. He said, "Oh, Alan," and his voice trailed off. He knew that this man had, shall we say, biases. I made it clear that I expected that he would speak to Alan about his comment. Now, hard to know if it actually happened, but I made my expectations clear, not just for myself, but for who the organization said they wanted to be. I stayed with the firm for several years more before deciding to leave to write my first book. I left on my own terms, and I knew that I left a legacy of having stood for quality and fairness and kindness and honesty. Many of my former colleagues have said as much since. Here are 3 lessons that you can consider when you're trying to align with your personal values. First, self-monitor. Be aware of and hold yourself accountable for honoring what you say you stand for in word and deed. You're setting forth your expectations of how you want to be treated and how you intend to treat others with honor and respect. Whether you realize it or not as a leader, you're modeling the behaviors you expect to see in your organization. And for those of you who are parents, certainly you're aware of how your children mimic what you do. It's a human trait that we don't outgrow. Similarly, at work, your team is watching you and can be tacitly demonstrating what is acceptable or tolerated. Secondly, say something. When you hear of or witness or are the subject of transgressions, say something. It takes courage, but honor is a fierce sword. Einstein said, "If I were to remain silent, I would be guilty of complicity." Number 3, hold the line. You are standard bearers as leaders. You should embody the values and the ethos of your organization, which should be based on fundamental human decency and goodness. I know I sound like Pollyanna here, but I dare say we have veered from an honorable path by not holding ourselves and others accountable for their actions, especially transgressions. Many workplace cultures have become toxic because, as leaders, we are not imposing consequences for bad behavior. We're conflict averse, or we just want to go with the flow, and that is not okay. I think it can be probably a little challenging to even figure out what some of your own personal values are, because they're so often assaulted and challenged. But I think if you think about how you grew up, now people grew up in all kinds of different environments, but we learned what right and wrong was. And more than that, what made you in your core, what did your inner voice, if you were really to tap into it, what was it telling you about what was right and what was wrong? You knew probably when you behaved in a way that was not kind. I'm looking for some basic human traits. For those of you who had a spiritual or religious background, you know what it means to be empathetic, to treat people with goodness and fairness and integrity. So those are the values that I'm looking for. Only you can decide what values are important to you. And those might change over time. Here's what I want you to take away. As a leader, you must show up with integrity and do not compromise. Speak your truth, not just for yourself, but for others, especially those who can't. That's your obligation. More than what you say, how you behave speaks volumes. This is more than being just about you. If you are truly in alignment with your values, you will likely be doing what is best, not just for yourself, but for others. This is how we as a civilization break old patterns and paradigms, by not allowing what doesn't serve us to continue, by offering another way that is for the good of all. Here's a book that I recommend. It's called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and you'll find a link to it in the description below. I know firsthand how taking that first step can be the catalyst for a life-changing transformation. I remember the moment I decided to harness my own strengths, and it made all the difference in my career. That's why I've created a career mapping tool just for you to help you uncover your unique competencies and leverage them to design your own career map. Take the first step towards your next level by clicking the link in the video description. And let's start this incredible journey together.